So I will be talking today about creativity in the era of AI. My name is Roosa Wingström, and I am a PhD student from the economic geography in the University of Turku. So a disclaimer, I'm not actually a computer scientist. I approach AI from the societal perspective, and especially in my study, or actually in the project where I'm working, which is called Creativity in the Era of Artificial Intelligence, or Luotais in the from the Finnish name, we are studying how AI is affecting creative professionals. And we have these two groups that we have been working with, computer scientists or engineers, and also new media artists. So in Luota we have this kind of very multidisciplinary group of people. So I'm an economic geographer. I'm interested in how from the economic perspective of things and from the labor perspective. But then we have people from arts and organization studies and humanities, and also a few computer scientists. So we do have a kind of full perspective on this issue. And what we are interested in, how this kind of, well, first of all, how creative process is emerging in the everyday life. So from my field, I've noticed why I was interested in this topic was because often when we think about creativity in economics or in organization studies, we think of the work you do between 8 to 4 and so on. And for me, that was a very strange approach to it because, of course, we are, in my opinion, creative all the time. Like, our creativity doesn't stop when we just take our bag and go home. So I'm interested in this processual point of view of creativity, like how it manifests in everyday life and in everyday spaces and all the time, in morning, night, evening, and so on. So in my PhD, I'm actually asking where and when creative work is done, and also what happens exactly, like I said, outside of work, and how those moments affect the creative process itself, but also what I'm also going to talk about today, like how these technologies affect this process, like how people are now using these novel technologies, not only AI, but all kinds of technologies, and how it actually affects their work process. So I believe this is why I was invited here today, and I will be introducing one of my research papers a bit more in detail a bit later in this talk. But so the agenda for this hour or so is as follows. So first, I would just like to give kind of this common ground. We would like to probably all have some idea of what AI is, and I think many of you do. But I think it's important to just have something to start with, and then talk about how AI has been spreading into society and what is its role in society today. But then maybe the central issue will be these topics 3 and 4, how AI shows in creative professions today, and what is creativity with AI, or can AI be creative, and also what challenges and promises those things bring about. So first, I would just like to begin with this question: what is AI? And I would like to open this platform actually already for you guys. I hope you have been having enough coffee to answer this kind of question, but also I want to emphasize that I'm not looking for one specific answer, and I would also, what I forgot to mention is that I would like to keep this talk very chilled and relaxed. So if you have at any point any question or comment or something, just raise your hand and say what you think, because that's totally fine. And I also, but I have also involved these little questions for you guys so we can all discuss together. But just anyone can say what comes to mind when I say AI, or when you hear the word AI. What do you think it is?
Something more intelligent than I am.
AI is a system that is not usually trained, but it's guided.
Guided, yeah.
Yes, so it may be something that is more related to machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk in general about AI, usually it's a really vast topic, but sometimes in the last few years it's more related to machine learning.
Mm. Yeah, the machine learning. Yeah.
I would say it's the opposite of natural intelligence.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is natural intelligence?
Or the opposite of artificial
GPT. like text generation, which on its own can be used for automation. For example, you don't have to come up with a text, so you can create structures and mind maps and all this, and then it automates it into text.
Yeah.
Maybe artificial we could control and natural we cannot control. It goes in unexpected ways.
Yeah. So artificial is something
Something that's maybe more expected
Yeah.
or controlled.
All really good answers, and I love asking this question because I do feel like there is so many answers as there is people answering. But actually, there is not a single definition for AI, as we can now see. Like all these answers were right, in my opinion. Like they are all related to AI. But the reason why it's actually super hard to define is because what is intelligence? Like there you said in the back that it's opposite of natural intelligence. But what is natural intelligence actually? We might have certain ideas of what is like intelligence in our heads. For instance, like academic intelligence. Like I can be seen as academically intelligent because I'm doing PhD. But then I might lack emotional intelligence. I might not have good social skills and so on. So there are all these different kinds of aspects of intelligence, and these have been theorized for centuries by philosophers, by scientists, and also by artists, I would actually add here. Here is one definition from Lloyd Humphreys, who was a cognitive scientist. So he says that it's a resultant of the process of acquiring, storing in memory, retrieving, combining, comparing, and using in new contexts information and conceptual skills. And this refers to humans, but now we could argue this is also something that computers could do, right? So, according to European Commission, for instance, if we have to now find a definition, and as a researcher I often have to give a definition when I write my research papers, people ask, so what is AI? And I have to say, well, it's this. So this is something that I see is commonly used, that AI refers to systems that display intelligent behavior by analyzing their environments and taking action with some degree of autonomy to achieve specific goals. But of course, this is also very vague. Like this can basically mean anything: what goals, what degree of autonomy, and so on. But this is just something to kind of start with. And what they actually do in computer science is that they don't see this whole thing that one program should do all of this, but they break these kind of things that we consider intelligence, like problem solving, reasoning, analyzing data. They break these into smaller parts, and then those small parts are the ones that computers do. So that's kind of the artificial intelligence. And if we can accept that there is different types of intelligences, maybe we can accept that computers can be intelligent in their own way. But also, you can disagree, it doesn't have to be true for everybody. So, often when you see things about AI, you probably hear the word algorithm as well, and I often think it's important to define what algorithm actually means, because sometimes they are used a bit synonymously, although they are not exactly the same thing. But just to give a kind of general idea, algorithm means kind of the instructions that AI or any computer uses to follow instructions and then perform a task. So in AI sense, algorithm could be very sophisticated set of instructions. So it can follow these instructions to then complete the task or solve a problem. And often what I see is used as a synonym is when you follow a recipe from a cookbook, you're actually following an algorithm. So in this sense, the same would be that if you give a recipe for a computer and then it knows how to follow that recipe and do the recipe or the kind of the food from what you have said. It's kind of the same thing here. But of course AI is a bit more sophisticated, if we can say so, so you can follow a bit more complex stuff and then do a bit more stuff than there would be the cookbook, for instance. And we already heard from you guys also some of these things like machine learning, robotics, and so on. So often AI is seen as this kind of umbrella term for all these things. And from what I've noticed when I've been working with computer scientists, they rarely say that I'm an AI scientist. They say that I'm doing this specific thing in machine learning and so on. So they rarely say that I do AI, because what is AI? But indeed, machine learning is kind of the method of doing AI. So it just means that you are teaching a machine or computer to do stuff that then it will like produce a new output and so on. And now maybe you heard of deep learning, so that's a type of machine learning that goes into, like it says, a deeper level of machine learning. So here the idea is that it follows the similar structured brain. So the neuron or neural network there in the algorithm is actually very complex, that it could it represents the same type of complexity that our brain has. So that's the name of deep learning. Of course, robotics, data science, they are sometimes involved. Sometimes they have AI in them, sometimes not. But it's good to kind of separate these issues, because it doesn't mean that if you see a robot, it necessarily has AI in it, or it might have. But yeah, just to, I like to show this to show the complexity of that whole field. So, is AI really intelligent? Going back to the first question. Well, often when we think about popular culture, for instance, this is like what is our image of AI, especially when it has been in the past maybe 20 years. I think it's maybe changing a bit these days. But when we see, for instance, science fiction films, we often see this type of AIs who are maybe human-like or can do really complex tasks, or they are even a threat to humanity because they are such a, capable species. If from top of your head, do you have any film in your mind that would have AI in it? Like a favorite film, or not even a favorite, but something you know? Terminator, yeah. Sorry, what did you say there? I didn't hear.
AI.
The film AI, yeah, exactly.
Short circuit.
Sorry?
Nighttime. Short circuit.
Yeah.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner. Yeah, so all of these films have exactly this type of AI that is kind of this super intelligent being. The reality of the situation that AI is this. So when you open a Netflix and it gives you recommendations, those recommendations are given by AI algorithm. So there is a big gap between what AI really is in the world and what kind of the popular culture has made it to be. And there is actually names for these types of AIs. So this kind of science fiction super intelligence AI is called strong AI or general AI. And what it means, it can do various different tasks. So for instance, this AI here seems to be, walking, having this kind of bodily functions, and it's maybe thinking, what is it doing, but then it can look a map and maybe write something. But actually that is not the possibility today, and some scientists speculate if it will ever be a possibility, because currently AIs are these weak or narrow AIs, so they are programmed to do a single task. So this Netflix algorithm can really well give you recommendations, but you can't put it to drive a Tesla because they are different type of programs. Whereas this science fiction image, they could probably give you recommendations and drive a Tesla, but that's the kind of big difference here. And maybe I'm not going to answer the question, is AI intelligent, because I can't, and I don't know if anybody really can. But I think it's good to remember that, actually this quote from Professor Donald Knuth is something that I really like, where he says that AI has now by now succeeded in doing essentially everything that requires thinking, but has failed to do most of what people and animals do without thinking. So when I grab this glass of water and I drink, I don't think that, now I will move my hand here and then I will raise it and then I will drink. Because I don't have to, it just happens automatically. But those things are actually the ones that are super hard for AI to do. And maybe one day we will see that there is an AI who can do the similar stuff. But today it's not yet there. And before we go to the AI and creativity part, I often like to include this little section about AI in society, because I think it's important to kind of keep context, what actually is AI doing currently in our daily lives without maybe us noticing. And I like to start with this timeline because it kind of gives you image that AI is actually a really old concept. Although we have, during the recent years, maybe the past 10 years or so, we have heard AI everywhere. It's actually almost a 100-year-old thing. And it already started in 1930s, 1940s, or even before, if you accept that AI is just a computer. You can theorize that it started already earlier. But when actually government started like putting money into AI was after the World War II. So here around 1940s, 1950s. And as you can see also the development of AI has not been like linear. There has been like these increases where there has been more funding and more development, and then there has been these so-called AI winters where there has been no funding or the like development has been halting a bit. And what the difference here is to the kind of post mid-1990s is that in the beginning the development was basically always funded by governments and so on. So governments would put money into these university programs. But then after 1990s, when there was this widespread of internet and then computation in general, we had suddenly massive amounts of data, and we also knew how to store it better. So the difference here is that whereas in the beginning it was developed by public organs or organizations, now it's suddenly being developed by private companies. So Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Google, all these companies have massive amounts of data. They have good storage, good ways to storage the data, and they also have a lot of money. Like when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like they are putting money a lot to AI, which has led us to this 2022, 2023 generative algorithms that we will be discussing a bit later in the creativity part. So because of that, because of the widespread of internet, digitalization, there has been, maybe you've seen this kind of concept of AI everywhere, that AI will be everywhere in our lives, like in all the products we are like using or manufacturing, it will be in all the processes we do in our daily lives, in the services and so on. And in many ways it already is. Like if you already think today, like everybody has maybe used a phone, maybe you have, opened Googled something. There is already like ways you have been using AI. Even if you have been doing transactions with a bank, that often involves some level of AI where they check the transactions, are they like valid and so on. When you navigate to places, I don't know if you have to navigate there, but maybe the bus driver, I don't know, but these all things use AI, so it's already there, but we don't necessarily see it that much. Here is just a little thing from this one article by Stone et al., where they speculate how life will look like with AI in 2030. So there's things like smarter cars, self-driving vehicles, better transportation planning. That is already happening, like we have these kind of self-driving cars, at least in some level. There will be advancements in healthcare, better analytics because of AI. In education and healthcare, we will be using like these robots to help the students learn or help elderly to have some company. And there will be like better planning in government agencies and so on. Like this is all, I would say, in some level happening already, but it's also good to know that the development is not always rapid. So please comment.
So I just
of course.
I know, but like first of all, these self-driving cars, because I feel like as we discussed that like AI and these movies and robots and all this, it's so sci-fi in some way. And I don't have a car of my own. I need one. I've rented one. And I recently was in a car that I rented, and it was this kind of partially self-driving.
Yeah.
You literally did not need to hold
Yeah.
on the wheel. You didn't need to like have your feet on the pedals. It would brake and speed up. It's only if you just sat there.
Mm-hmm.
It freaked me out.
Yeah.
Because I suddenly like realized that you're living in the future kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought it was quite like amazing. And
Yeah.
since I'm not in this driving life every day, I feel like I missed when did this today happen. It's like at one point I've been driving my Volvo V40
Yeah.
and now there's self-driving cars.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in that sense, it may be like when I said it's not like fast development, but I would say they also started like planning these self-driving cars like maybe 20 years ago. So only now it's like good enough to be actually in the streets, and even there, So you said it's partially driving, so it's like
It was kind of like,
yeah,
you have to turn it on and then
Yeah.
you get to the road and you set the speeds and all
Yeah.
that it recognize after it's like running, that
Yeah.
it recognize the distances between cars,
Yeah.
recognize the lanes so you didn't need to, and like how the road is turned.
yeah,
So we kind of, when it was all going,
yeah.
and we kind of managed the size.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and also what I would say about that is like how like long time it took to get that actually into the actual road. So it was in a long time in these labs where they would like test it, and then they noticed, oh, this car actually doesn't recognize people when they walk over the street. Like we have to fix something. So there's all these things that are being planned, and some of them end up working quite well in the real world, but some of them are exactly like we develop something in the lab and then we bring it to the real world and then we realize, oh, this actually doesn't work that well. But I think in the self-driving cars there's actually a lot of legal issues still, because there is this thing like, what if there's a mistake? What if the car exactly doesn't recognize someone walking over? Is it the fault of the driver that they didn't like pay attention, they didn't like brake fast enough, or is it the fault of the manufacturer of the car? And I think many of the cars, at least Teslas, have this thing that they are actually not liable to cover anything if they do like crash something. I don't know if you know better.
No, I just suddenly remembered that I actually, it was almost like a game, but I think it was to like, it's moral questions in relation to traffic. Of like, if this happened, what would you prioritize? If the car is going to crash, would you pick a group of school children or a group of elderly?
Yeah,
And like with moral questions. And I think this was exactly for these self-driving cars, and like that when it can recognize people on the road that in times of danger, it needs to pick from the evils, what evil would kind of the human society consider the lesser one.
Yeah.
And I think that it was kind of like, it was going around the internet at one point, people were playing it, or like always these moral dilemmas, but I think that in reality it is this information gathering for AI development for self-driving vehicles.
Yeah. That's
which we'll
actually
have to do.
really good bridge to my second slide, where I want to discuss exactly these topics. We don't have to focus only on self-driving cars, but that was actually a really good opener. So have you now exactly maybe seen around the internet, or just thought for yourself, like what kind of risks have you perceived that AI would bring into our society if it would become this widespread? And again, the floor is open, you can just shout, or we can start. You can go like there.
A major generator of disinformation.
Yeah, disinformation, that's really good one.
Like what was happening right now in the film world of the American SAG, the screenwriting Actors Guild, how they will strike because the AI is affecting the jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
But for actors, it's very easy to face them as that.
Yeah, so will all the movies in the future be produced by AI?
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the question you asked me about the difference between natural and artificial intelligence, and try to also go into this. So it took some time, I'm a male, it took me some time to think about your question, and now I have the answer.
Okay.
So the natural intelligence would be that you have a tree, which is a natural product of nature. And it takes a long time for this tree to develop the relationships to environment. And it does that by itself, more or less. And artificial intelligence is product of a human, and in so much I would argue that it's not intelligence, because it doesn't develop itself, or it will get to a stage that it develops itself. But for now, we develop it only to be our slave. You know, if you go on the slide before this one, and our prediction was it will do in 2030, it's all, it doesn't, everything it does, it's a slave to a human. So it's going to drive cars, but we're going to be in the cars. It's going to transport planning, but it's going to do that for us.
Yeah.
It's going to do buildings for us. It's even going to predict for police if we're going to do something in the future. So it's all about controlling us and helping us, and however you want to form.
So basically you're saying because it doesn't have its own motivation,
It doesn't, yeah, if you look at the tree, I mean, it does exist for us. It's this kind of divine, it gives us the oxygen and it's like a mother, it cares for us.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do that because we made it.
Yeah, these are good points. Actually, in the end of the presentation, I will open again the general discussion about AI. But to go a bit back into this, we can. Do you have something to add, or?
I think it's narrow my living space. It's so narrow. So I think it because if I just watch the Google where I go and side to side shop and then I go with the car, don't ever get lost or be stupid or that's a very important thing.
Yeah.
Artistic life.
Yeah.
So I shall be slave of my own life. So I don't want to be.
So you want to
slave
follow
of
the
myself.
AI recommendations instead of just walking somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I could leave my telephone home and just go to forest and get lost. So
Yeah, good.
find something.
I also, can I just, because I think it kind of links back to this algorithm thing. Because the algorithms themselves, they're kind of are, you know, we program these kind of algorithmic models in the computers, and you know, those are our wishes, or that's how we enslave the system to do certain things that we want it to do. But at the same time, the way it's sort of like, that's one of the risks I would suppose is already in the algorithms. Like, what are the algorithms? Who is controlling the algorithms? Who is telling the AI to kind of achieve certain things? And I mean, obviously, there's very many examples of already how, you know, for example, with like Facebook or Facebook algorithms and how they've like created all kinds of real world problems because although the algorithms themselves might have seemed completely innocent to begin with, but then when you actually like put them into use in the world, then what happens? I mean, I know that's a very general thing.
Yeah, exactly. We can, let's just checking the time, let's have a few more comments there. I think here was one, and then maybe from there,
So something similar that Zoe said, I think it's really important, but also what kind of data we're putting into it and how is it labeled and constructed and who is writing the keywords which are, for example, related to some images or sounds or videos, which we are training the AI. Because usually, so far, especially at these beginnings, after the surge of the data that we had, which we trained AI, it was related, it was kind of a copy of our already mistakes. So already our databases that were badly labeled. So we copied some racistic and social unemployment and economic and all these things that we unfortunately have in our society. We copied in our data and then we trained the machine with that kind of material, right? Together with these algorithms which are necessarily not, didn't take all these important things while they were programmed or guided, and all that together, maybe it's quite a risk. And nowadays there are many talks and discussions about it, but still we have a lot of things to do.
Yeah, so basically AI is an image of ourselves, and sometimes it's not that pretty. Did someone there had a comment yet?
I see three potential groups. First, like in society as humans and in the arts. I'm gonna start as in the arts. I think it's back to the physical part of the performing arts, theatre and dance. I think that AI could be a potential risk and threat for theatre and for dancing in general. Because as we're able to create human stuff to intelligence, there can be a risk for the performers. That's right. Second, I think that because we all have different personalities, and AI can have like no personality, so it becomes you have no name, no nothing, not nothing to you. Just a body that's floating around in space. But second was test us apart, like what makes us different to each other. And now I feel that we have a risk of losing
but it has unique puzzle. Like imagine a world where no one is a creative, no one is a performer, no one is an artist, no one is old, no one has a disability. Like what's unique in the end?
Yeah, actually those are good topics because I'm going to that part now in the AI and creativity, and these are really good bridges there. Here is just, I will show you this entire slide because I have just put some of these are more to do with the societal risks, but we are not going to go through all of these now because it's exactly what you guys said, but just some of the kind of societal risks that have been identified in them in terms of AI is exactly like security and like these threats. So how do we make these autonomous systems secure? Also, what is then the impacts on unemployment? If there is certain tasks that are being become more autonomous, then do we like lose a lot of jobs in that process? And exactly what one of the comments said, that our AIs will always aligned with humanity or our values. And what if machines make decisions that are rational but actually morally not so good? And exactly who owns the data and who, especially when it's our personal information. And when we do that Facebook profile or we create an Instagram profile, what do we actually sign away in that process? Like what do we give and to whom? And can we sufficiently assess the accuracy and bias in AI algorithms? So we have this data that we train it with, and we hope to make it objective, but actually the outcomes might be very biased and very even racist or even misogynist and so on. And what happens when we can't even explain the AI? We see this result and we think, oh, this must be correct because it's AI, but then we don't understand the process that it has used to go to that conclusion. And then who governs these kind of algorithms? Like who is then liable if the AI is wrong? Like is it the company? Is it the policymakers? Is it the user? Who can we kind of hold accountable if something actually does go wrong? And then what I find interesting, especially as an economic geographer, is like we use so much resources for this kind of AI because actually the data doesn't just like exist somewhere in the cloud. We actually need a lot of resources and power to store it, and we need a lot of resources to mine things like things for the autonomous vehicle, for instance. And they are not mined here in the Europe or even in the US. They are mined in global South with people who don't often get a lot from their work and so on. So who is actually paying the price for us to be using this AI? And also exactly the disinformation, and I think especially during this like generative AI era has been a big issue. Are we capable of recognizing this information? And I would say many people are not, especially if I think my parents, they don't necessarily recognize what is a fake, deep fake video, what is like a real video, and that can be really, really big issue in the future if there is no regulation. But before I follow with the creativity part, I would just like to give a little glimpse of hope that EU is actually doing a lot of work for this, because EU has published its first regulation on AI already in 2021, and the goal of this is that they would provide them some obligations for the developers of AI to follow, that they would then have to keep on track like what kind of repercussions the AI can have on society and people. And this would actually then, if the providers then break these regulations, they would actually face sanctions. So there would actually be a real impact, and EU is doing a lot, I would say, better job in this than, for instance, China or the USA, who are really not regulating anything at the moment. So EU is kind of being this leader in the regulations. But so then we get to the actual, maybe at least for me, the most interesting part, which is the creativity and AI. And again, I'm making you guys talk, but I love these definition tasks. So now forget about AI for a moment. Just think about creativity and this word. What does it mean to you? If I ask you what is creativity or when are you creative, what would you answer? Again, you can just give answers, shout or raise hands. interesting that there is more silence than in the
Where to start? I think it's some kind of fundamental need to create.
Yes, Bersin, thank you first for your presentation. For me, previous to that, I want to add that perhaps is the artificial intelligence mythology is going faster than what is the technology behind, because, like you say, it's algorithms based in predicting things that is based in data that could be previous data or data they are taking at the moment. And with creativity, I have the definition of someone who said something is artistic or creative when you have 1% of new in the 90% that you are picking up from your experience, memories, etc. And I think in this way we are very close to the artificial intelligence, because in fact when the people shows artistic devices or artistic ideas, they are not 100% original, they are not 100% new, just 1%. That means that for me, this creativity is what you could do this little change in something that was previously.
Yeah. Again, there's not like a right answer. Obviously, this is a very personal question. Yeah.
Just like briefly said, it's about combining things.
Like combining new and old.
New elements or unusual elements together.
Yeah.
Playful.
Yeah. There in the back.
Yeah, maybe adding to that, the other part, I think creativity is choice and choices, but then it can be also unconscious. So many people say, I'm not creative at all, but everybody's somehow creative. It's not only connected to art.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I think adding to this is like a way of behaving. It's like a way of choosing or behaving or we adapt choice in the day.
Yeah.
Day life.
There in the middle, there's.
I think that in creativity, well, for me, it's also like an urge to create something to do, like I cannot be without doing something. But I also think that what makes human make stuff different, even though it's also kind of like we collect stuff from the surroundings and then combine stuff and do. But if we all draw a stuff, it will be different from each and everyone. So we all have our own personal handwriting, and that is something that we cannot copy or read from somewhere, and that is something that AI doesn't have, and I don't think that will have. So
Let's have one more so we can continue.
I think in a way, creativity is like kind of a way to satisfy your inner child. Because back when we were kids, we didn't have like as closed mind as we do now since we're adults. Not closed mind as in like we're so busy, and like as a kid we had more imagination and creativity. We had more time on our hands. But it's like for me, it's like I'm enjoying my time, remembering my childhood, seeing my imagination still growing. Something that sometimes like it's difficult for people to have, but like I can see here people are very creative in here basically. That's kept their inner childhood, alive basically.
We have to move on, but maybe if you have a quick comment there, then we can do it later. Do you want to have just a short comment?
I have a quick individual answer.
Yeah.
So I would say diversity, uniqueness, the beauty, passion, humanness, and new values.
Yeah. So really, we will definitely discuss later. I will just, for the sake of the time. So often in research, especially, we have to give certain things definitions, and creativity is one of those things that I also have to define often when I do research, which I find very how would I say, annoying almost, because as we have now heard from everybody has a different definition for creativity, and none of those are like wrong. They are all kind of complementing each other. But what I have seen in research, especially this kind of standard definition for creativity, has been the process of creating something new, surprising, and valuable in terms of usefulness or aesthetic pleasure. And this is, I would say, a very reductant definition, but it maybe gives the core idea of what we mean with creativity. And here is just going to go through that, but this is from my paper where I collected from different creativity and psychology scholars some definitions of creativity. And here we can see that often what is repeating is kind of this process where things are being created. It can be developing new ideas, or exactly combining new ideas and bringing like some new stuff into the world. And
Please, how do you connect the concept creativity with imagination? Because for me, first you need to have the vision, imagination, and after you create following this vision. Because if not, at the first moment you need to have a conceptual, let's say, three-dimensional vision of where you want to achieve.
yeah, I mean, it probably depends what you also think about it. Because like somebody said, it can be like this everyday creativity. So I'm not sure if I have necessarily imagination every day if I just randomly walk in a park and think like, oh, I will actually go this way today. I'm just choosing it, and it can be a creative choice from some perspective, but in the sense if you think that creativity is something that you need motivation for, then it's definitely combined with this idea of imagination. And maybe this is, like I said, in the research, from the research perspective, we often tend to exclude things to make something more precise. And this is actually a good follow-up to this topic of computational creativity. So that in this context of AI, there is this need to find like something to work with AI. So then when these scientists actually try to replicate creativity in AI, they need something to like start from. They need to, okay, if we want to make a creative computer, what does it have to have? What kind of skills? But indeed, I'm not trying to like say here that creativity is like one thing. I'm trying to like explain like kind of the field of computational creativity. And sorry, yeah, please.
Yeah, I would say also to add to what we said is, even though the definitions are humanly focused, we also have the more than human creativity.
Yes.
Like going back to the trees and more than human beings.
Yeah, exactly.
Where there are also birds who learn something from their parents, but they also compose their own songs. So it's only one of the examples.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say again here with it's a bit similar discussion than with the intelligence part. So we kind of, what they do here, this is like computational creativity is actually a really long field of study. It has not been that popular in the field of computer sciences because it hasn't sounded that interesting or profitable for people until the past few years, when it has obviously been seen as a very profitable thing to have these kind of creative systems. So I'm just giving this context to kind of again say that this development of these things have started way before like now these recent years when you have seen all these like generative AIs that can create pictures and so on. Like this is actually a really long endeavor that relates to the idea of artificial intelligence in the sense that if we want to replicate human behavior in computers, can we replicate creativity? And again, it's a topic that is highly debated, and I'm not trying to give like one specific answer that yes, we have managed to do it, or no, we haven't done it. It's just something that people are trying to do. And here is some examples that are considered in the field of computational creativity, which again is a field in computer sciences. So this is not, you don't have to accept this as art if you don't want to, but again, this is something that is being developed in the field of computer sciences. So one of the first was this artist called Carl Cohen, who developed a program called Aaron. Maybe you have heard of that. So Aaron actually was a computer that would paint based on the data it was trained. It would paint like these lines on a paper, and then Harold would paint like between the lines, so they would kind of create these paintings together. Jennifer, do you want to?
For me, as a digital artist, I see it with some people on the internet. They kind of use AI to generate artwork, and they say that they created it, which is it kind of makes me mad because it takes so much time and patience and effort to do like a specific artwork, and they just after a few seconds of typing something like pretty woman with black hair, it just comes up, and they're getting more views, more money than I am, which is kind of not fair, you know. But at the same time, I get what you mean. Like AI, for example, gaming in the industry is a really good idea to and the arts. I find it makes me a bit upset, you know.
Yeah, and that is really a good thought to have in mind. And I really want to get back to that. And just first, I think maybe here what's also important, or at least interesting to note, is that kind of how much this generative AI that we will be discussing in a minute has affected our like understanding of computational art, in the sense that it doesn't even have to be kind of this artificial intelligence. We are not necessarily trying to say, or they are not trying to say, that we are now replicating or replacing human creativity. What is maybe happening more, often the idea is that you want to program a machine or computer that can maybe do artwork with you, or kind of these different types of artworks. Or, of course, there is also these kind of programs that are developed to be creative in their own right, under some definition. And again, I'm not a computer scientist, so I can't like really evaluate if that is creativity. And again, creativity is debated. But I would say that we are going more to this direction, to kind of AI to be used in co-creation with humans. And I actually have a few examples of this that I would like to show. Maybe you have heard of these artists before. I'm trying to find the Oxford here. And I think some of these are super inspirational, and also kind of give a bit wider idea, especially now when we've been kind of immersed with this generative AI, and kind of what kind of all different types of computer art there can be. So this is example from Chinese-Canadian artist So Wingström, who has been creating art with robots.
My work to date has been about combining the hand-drawn line and the intuitive gesture with different types of algorithms and computational technologies. And that's turned into investigation into human and robot collaboration, thinking about what's the next stage of the interface today.
I've done a number of things at Bell Lab. In recent years, my work has been in video analytics, and I'm trying to expand the applications from simply public safety to interactiveness and to art. I have no expertise in art, and so when the Artist Residence program at Bell Labs began, I was thrilled, because now this was a partnership. I could provide what I knew how to do, and these artists would have new and wonderful and very different ideas that I had even conceived.
I became really interested in Larry's background off the bat. He creates visual algorithms that are applied to public cameras, and that really triggered my thinking about how I could use that as a way to extract behavior from an urban setting into something that I could paint in.
Well, security cameras have had a long history. What I'm doing differently, I'm sort of dumbing down the problem. Instead of looking at each individual out there, I'm looking at crowds. If something happens, the crowd will react to that collectively. And since it's bigger, video analytics can more reliable to recognize that.
What I'm doing with Omnia is I've been calling it the biometrics of the city, but what it essentially is the general optical flow of the city through Bell Labs' motion engine, and I've translated that behavior into robotic movement that functions as gesturally motion on the canvas.
When I first met Sue Min, I loved the line of her art, and ultimately, you don't think it's about the technology. I think that we, the technologists, facilitates the artists. And I'm learning something from them, and they're learning something from me.
What makes collaboration interesting is that there's a lot of give and take and vulnerability that's required in it, and a lot of trust. And it becomes a lot more than the work. It's about the energy between people and human and machine alike. And I think a lot of the work is reflective of that.
It has informed me, broadened my own thoughts. I'm a researcher, I'm supposed to be creative as well, but perhaps one is creative in a restrained way, and they allow me to think outside of this universe in a very different way.
I didn't make that video, you know. But that is just, I don't have enough time to show the other artists. I passed that time. So YouTube was like, don't you dare look. Okay, so I don't have time to show the other artists, sadly, but I think that's one of the wonderful examples of this kind of co-creation. And obviously there is so many types of co-creating with AI as there is artists and also the AIs. But maybe, because this is kind of something that when I went to kind of study creativity with AI, these were the examples that kind of I saw first. And now it's interesting to see how this has been flipped after the generative AI. And so just going a bit back to the discussion that we had here, and this is again from the computer scientist perspective, that this is a too difficult task to even try to kind of replicate creative behavior on computers. And often what happens is that, like we saw from the definitions of computational creativity, we tend to look at the outcome of for instance, when you see an AI-generated picture, but if you would show it without kind of telling who created it, then we evaluate based on that. And that is kind of the idea that has been going on in the computational creativity world, but I think it's important to notice that it's just one very narrow type of definition for creativity, and I do really encourage, like we have already heard, like all these debates about what actually is creativity, like as they call that's creative. And from that, this is now just shortly about my own study. This is actually what we discussed with the computer scientists and new media artists. Like we were interested in, first of all, how if they used AI, in what ways, and also how did it affect their work exactly. So we were interested in them, like not only the process, but also their perspectives. Like, what do you think is creative AI? Is there such a thing? And so I interviewed 26 computer scientists and 26 new media artists to ask about these questions. And I found really interesting, first of all, when I had these two groups, there was definitely these two distinct definitions for creativity, especially from the point of view of scientists. Like they didn't really think that when using AI there should be necessarily, maybe they thought it's creative to like write or something, but they don't necessarily think that the outcome itself should be creative because they want to create precise knowledge. And then I contrasted that with the idea of these artists who were using AI. And actually what they had to say was that AI helped them to be more creative, because there were sometimes these mistakes that they hadn't like kind of thought before. They were coding something and they wanted to have this outcome, but then the outcome was something totally different. And then they found that to be creative. And of course, we can argue, is that the AI being creative, or is it just the artist interpreting things that then comes out as creative when it's like created and presented to the world? But this just kind of shows to me how, in many ways, we can actually use AI and how it fits all these different definitions of our ideas, what we actually want to do with it.
Yeah, I think it was AI uses our pictures. Let's say I can do some tests with stable diffusion, and sometimes it feels like they are like recognizable artworks.
Yeah,
you see all pieces of them. So in the process of thinking like where to contact people when I ask about rights of the arts or of my arts, how it could be
I have a slide about that because I read about this lawsuit that was made in the US. Just in a few moments, we will get exactly to the copyright things of the things. But just still from my research, I also asked the people, like, do you think AI is creative? And I noticed this is a tricky question to ask because I was faced with exactly these things that we have now been talking about. What is intelligence? What is creativity? And only after answering those, we could maybe get a bit closer to, okay, can AI be creative? But this is just some of the answers that I got. And as you can see, it was actually interesting. It was quite 50-50, and not even depending on if the answer was coming from a scientist or from an artist. But some people said that AI cannot be creative. Actually, most people said that no, it cannot be creative. There are some reasons for that. I think the lack of ability to recognize discovery makes AI not creative from their perspective. But then some people said AI can be creative. I would say yes, I think AI can be creative provided you take the right definition of creativity. So again, it's like what is creativity? If creativity for you is producing something new and valuable, then AI can actually do that from some perspective. It can produce a new picture that does not exist in the world yet, but of course the process how it does that might not be very creative. And then one artist said, if humans are creative, I think that creativity trickles down to AI too. Whether the creativity is in the purpose or functions of the AI, so yes, AI can be creative. So it depends how they have programmed AI. If the artist is programming and thinking, I will program a creative AI, is it then creative? I don't know, maybe from their perspective. So now we get to the topics that we have been kind of brushing over already, the challenges and maybe even the promises also of creative AI. So we have already been talking a bit about the generative AI, as many of the examples that you've been saying, the ChatGPT, for instance, or then the programs that produce new images. They have got these so-called generative models. So they are these like deep neural networks that are also like leading the search of AI. So this is exactly the reason why AI is now saying very, very hot topic, because these models have become so efficient because of all the data, and especially because we have found ways to actually program them with very, very efficient machines and with data storage and so on. And again, I'm not a computer scientist, but just to put it like shortly, what happens in these models is that like they have programmers put a massive amount of data into these models, and then they learn from those models and they generate new outputs, and the learning processes are a bit different, and also the creating of the new outputs can be a bit different, but that's basically what happens, that they have so much data now that they can just use that data to create the new outcomes. And then this relates to the issue of AI art, which then often refers to outcomes or pictures or whatever text generated with this kind of models. And just to kind of give an idea how massive this field is currently, they are saying that because of generative AI, the AI market will grow to 1.3 trillion over the next 10 years, which is, I would say, highest growth since like, early 2000s. Like it's growing really, really fast, and especially private companies are super interested in this because it can really create a lot of money and save you costs. So here are some of the examples that I'm going to show. Maybe you already know GPT. How many of you have used GPT? Okay, so around half. Have you used GPT? So here is one thing, but actually I can since if not everybody has used it, I can quickly also use it now to show how it works. So what happens, it's a chatbot basically, but now they have released a new version that is really efficient. So I asked give tips about massive places.
Can you ask me what is creativity?
I can ask actually. Sorry that. So then ChatGPT generates an answer, and this is actually like, it's supposed to be unique every time, so it gives you like a new answer every time you ask something. Okay, it really got flying there.
Starting a master's thesis.
Yes. Let's see what it says here. Creativity is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that involves the generation of new and valuable ideas, concepts, and solutions to problems. So again, you can see this definition that I was I had found in my research. So actually, it has maybe learned that from all these same books that I have also been reading. And it's not limited to artistic expression, but can manifest in various domains such as science, technology, business, and everyday life. And yeah, here is a lot of different things. But how ChatGPT then works is that it has been trained with data. Usually, it used to be so that up until the data was collected up until 2021. But I think I read somewhere now that there is now ChatGPT is using all the internet in real time, so actually it's learning from everything that we are now producing. It's not only limited to certain time periods. We can have one more question if you want to ask something from the GPT.
Can you ask this ChatGPT if he can be creative or she can be creative?
He or she?
If he or she can be creative, how kids can be creative?
He or she says, I, as a machine learning model, do not process creativity in the same way humans do. I can generate responses based on patterns in the data I was trained on and provide information ideas, but I don't have consciousness, emotions, or the ability to truly create in the human sense. My responses are a result of algorithms and computation, not genuine creative thinking. So ChatGPT doesn't think it's creative.
This is an honest question. It's an honest thought.
Maybe we can drop off now. We're like, okay, let's go on. AI said it's not creative. Yeah. But I think what is interesting is what it says next, that I can assist you in your creative process. I can provide you with information such as ideas or help you brainstorm. And this is exactly what I think is kind of the original thought behind creative AI. I don't think many people intended to be this kind of replacement of human creativity, but rather this kind of enhancement. And then going back to these other examples, also here I wanted to show you this was, I found it really funny because when I first asked for the take an example, I asked what are the must-see places in Turku that I should tell about to artists who come to visit, and it gave me a list of nice things. But then it also gave me this super random example of Arabia Street that I'm from Turku, I've been living there 12 years. This place doesn't exist. And I was like, where did you find this? I think it has somehow mixed up because there is a bit similar place in Turku that is not called like that, and then the place in Helsinki, so it has somehow, I don't know, merged those, but then you can't always believe also what it says. And this is also one of the issues that if we just ask ChatGPT or any AI something and we just trust it blindly, I would now be walking there looking for Arabia Street, and it's not there, so just something to keep in mind. This ChatGPT model is now used in various different programs. So actually, because I believe it's open source, at least you can buy it and subscribe to it and then use it in your own whatever way. It's now used in multiple different programs. So for instance, I wanted to write an essay about the role of artificial intelligence in arts. I just gave a prompt to this program that is ChatGPT based, and it just wrote me an essay. And I could maybe submit that to a teacher and hope that I wouldn't get caught. I think the text was quite good. Of course, I could just add a few tweaks here and there to make it my own. But yeah, so this is also why, for instance, in marketing, they don't have to anymore hire people if they don't want to write some marketing text. They can just tell ChatGPT or whatever program that, hey, can you write a marketing text for Instagram for this and this product. I think this is maybe the hottest topic at the moment. So these generative models that create images. So here's two that I created one with crayon and one with spatial diffusion. So what happens is that you can now basically just give a text prompt to these programs and create a new image. Have you guys used these or tried these? Everybody has it. So you kind of know how it works. So they have been trained with massive amounts of data. So I would say it doesn't look, I've tried to give this realistic prompt to it, but I couldn't get it to look more human. I don't know. There's something in the people that still looks like very not real, but I think it's also because I haven't paid for anything, and they say if you pay, you get better results. So maybe I should have paid. And
Can I
yes,
just pause a comment to that? If you have to study the picture properly, you could actually see that it is fake.
yes.
From the expression of the eyes.
Yeah,
I have this issue with my son and my husband. They play what's it called? Yes, the video game. PlayStation football game. And everybody's all about how good the graphics are and how realistic and all that. And it's true because they really, in fact, we had this thing that last yesterday. They really flex a lot and they're really good at it. But if you have to really look into the expression of the eye, you can see that they look like zombies. And in actual fact, these beautiful models who are, they make them very beautifully. You actually have to study the eyes. You'd realize that they look like dead people. They look like zombies, you know?
Yeah, and it used to be also hands. Like now, I think AI has gotten better with drawing hands, but it used to be so that you would get these figured hands always, and that would be the way you would find out it was actually AI created. I still think there is many things that if you really look into it, for instance, the sleeves from this like left-sided model is very unequal. Like there is all these ways you can like tell that it's actually made by AI. But the thing is, if you want to produce a lot of pictures for marketing purposes, so you're not necessarily going to care how much mistakes there is if you just need to get some nice visual. So it's more like I don't think many people they might like accept these little faults to kind of just get the images for a lesser price than they would have to if they would actually hire a photographer to model. And another thing is these deepfake videos. They are maybe a bit easier to like here for instance, like I think this is the original and then Barack Obama is like the deepfake one. And I think these are a bit easier to tell that these are like deepfakes, but this is exactly what is becoming also very difficult to kind of differentiate. And this is what I think is leading the disinformation campaigns, for instance. Like there's all these videos with people seemingly saying stuff and they are really not actually saying it at all, it's someone else. And then also music can be generated with these exact things, like you can easily now, if you're for instance a YouTuber, you can get nice background music with just a few clicks. If you are doing an ad campaign, you can get a nice background for it, which is a really low cost subscription, and then AI has produced totally unique music that is just for you to use. So yeah, and these are just like top of the iceberg, yeah.
Again, I don't have anything to say, but imagine like you're a music artist and you're trying hard to get your music known and stuff, and then there's people using these types of software.
Yeah.
It should be kind of annoying because people will get seen from using a software that's easier for them to go ahead. They have to do is add a certain amount of notes and they're done and they can just post it. Music artists have to think about the notes they need to use. They have to think like what subject the song is about or what kind of instruments they need to use. A lot of models use. But here you just play with and then you get a whole song is something there. And then there's another app, I don't know what it's called. And that singers use to make it easier for them to edit.
Yeah.
And I will put up that in many ways, we're always, I mean, now in these days, we're thinking about hardware that doesn't think about me as the first things. So, like, for example, I mean, that's so everything that is around me. I want to say it doesn't matter because I matter a lot, but it's about the something. Even if there are imaginary things. So I think that also in this case, but also in the other kind of movie of every kind of art, like sensitiveness, like
I like to work with people that has a precise kind of sensitiveness, and so this is something that of course we cannot generate. I mean, we were just joking about like, okay, now we're going to get more our position, but I'll never, I'll never. I need to work with these people because I know this kind of sensitiveness. But
the connection, emotions flow to each other.
I'm not speaking about emotion, I'm speaking about technology, knowledge, I'm speaking about awareness of subtitles, the overline or the underline of things like that. But at the same time, I'm thinking like what about technology? So how this technology can be included in my own background layers as a layer. So
that is, of course, it's great. It's hard. It can be a scary prospect. It's like developing AI technology and it's here taking over and all this. But the reality of the fact is that AI will continue to be developed, and this will happen. And now EU is creating regulations for these campaigns and I agree to incorporate them to utilize it in a way that can work with us and help us and to you as you also discussed it as something that supports the creativity, just does not replace it.
Yeah,
but I understand that of course if people create pieces of music completely just via the machine, we're talking about a different thing. But we also see it as really great. Because it really
I'm sorry, I'm aware of the time, so I will try to finish the presentation. But exactly, these are some arguments that I've seen used for AI art. One of the things is accessible to everyone. So one of the things is if you don't have access to tools or you can't, like for instance, like I don't know, create the paintings yourself for whatever reason, then it's now accessible for everybody to do so. And one of the things, this is definitely, I would argue, a very debated issue, but some people say that it enhances productivity, accuracy, and consistency. And if these are things that you're looking for when you use whatever, then it definitely does those things. Like you can't argue that it's not productive, it's very efficient, and it's very consistent. And maybe in some ways AI can create new forms of art nobody can imagine. For instance, you can argue we saw that like artist Jung who did like this imaging with robots. So could these art could it exist without the robots? Maybe, but also it's a different type of art, so it's kind of a new form of creating stuff. So there is these arguments. But then arguments against AI, which I think is maybe a bit more poignant or what I've seen more. Exactly this thing, like, is it an adapt or die situation? Like, does everybody now have to start using AI? Or otherwise you will be you will not have a job anymore, especially if you're a graphic designer or you work in the film industry or marketing and so on. This is not something you just have to do or you have to find a new job. And will all movies and videos be generated by AI one day? Also the copyright issues, we will get into that more. Actually, I can show you here next one. So the copyright issue is very poignant right now, like somebody here said, like the pictures that are often used are used without permission, or they are just like taken from the internet and without anybody's permission, and then the AI has been using those to train, and now based on those photos, they are being sold even. So is it okay for someone to generate, for instance, there's these marketing things like tools that you can use that are actually you have to pay a price to use them, and then you get these pretty pictures. And is it okay for that kind of companies to use these models that actually are just using these art for free? Like they are training their models for free. They are not actually paying the artists anything. They just use their pictures and put them into the algorithm or the model, and then they sell the outcomes. Is that fair?
I asked to give you birth, and this is on this Kindle stuff. I'm missing. For example, I'm not raised by myself. And I have started public books on this is nonsense. And I see my stuff and pin them on the Chinese Japanese, American, and
Exactly.
So having proud with the Roosa,
Yeah.
very much being used on atomic acid science.
That certain universities they realize, because even ChatGPT, they notice that because they like, oh, this was generated, like they have a system where it's like referenced, so it doesn't say like, hey, this is I wrote it, like no one else did, and they would know that would be served as pages, or even like I think that's artwork. If it was like referenced from somewhere, they should like at the artist, or at least like they reference to the artist so that they kind of get.
Yeah, but that was exactly here. For instance, there was this big lawsuit, a bit similar. So this issue was about exactly like books. So these books have been used like from Stephen King, David Smith, Michael Pollan, among others, without permission, and Facebook used those to train their own book writing model. And another thing was this artist actually in the US sued Midjourney and other AI companies based on the fact that they could detect that, or at least in their opinion, that some of the outcomes had definitely used their photos or their art in training the model. And what actually happened here is the judge said that it seems implausible that their works are involved because they have been trained with 5 billion compressed images. So what is your right if there's 5 billion images and you say, oh, I think at least 10 of mine have been used there? You can't prove it in any way. You can just say that it looks like it, but then anybody can say, well, it just looks like it because AI created it, like it's just an accident. So here, here I think the lawsuit is going to get another round. I'm not sure if this one was dismissed exactly for this reason, but I think currently they are like preparing another lawsuit to maybe rephrase the issue in some way to kind of get the artist's word heard. But this first one actually failed. This was just maybe the most famous example. Have you seen this? So it's the AI generated painting that was actually sold with $432,000 in the auction. And this was actually I don't think the person had actually programmed this himself. He was just using the Midjourney model and we just trained it with pictures that he liked and from other artists, and then he actually got $400,000 for it, which is some people call this is ridiculous. He thinks it's maybe a good way to make money. I don't know. This again is only one of the copyrights.
Who sold it?
I think he sold it himself. Like he sold, or it was in the auction of. What did you say here? Yeah, Christie's in New York, so they have organized an auction for it. So I'm asking now, like, if I would then produce this picture with crayon and I would print it and sell it, can I call myself artist? Or if I took this photograph of dogs and I sold it as a print, would I be the artist here? Or who would be the artist? Would this stable diffusion be the artist? Would artists be all the thousands or millions of photographers who've actually been like taking the photographs before I could use the model? This is the question that maybe currently remains unanswered, and I don't know, do you have ideas about this? I can add also the other philosophical questions, and now this is exactly the moment where I want to open the platform for, we can start there and then go here.
Yeah, I think this is well done. I think the audience decides if it's an artist, a person was created that picture, or the computer. I mean, if the money is exchanged, in a way it doesn't matter, because somebody buys the artwork and in a way it gives authority. But that's just like from one perspective. That's not even my opinion. It's just like maybe one fact from one side.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question because with just playing these algorithms that are learning for databases of words are creating art, for me this is a very hard opinion because I think at this moment we need to involve more the critique of art. Let's say the way who are has the big knowledge of what is contemporary art and what is not, because just making a version of something or making something that is moving, it looks like art, but it's not art because in the essence of contemporary art there are more things that use to scenes, looks like. I put the example, Benfica Nadal was exhibiting his neural all artificial intelligence animations in MoMA, and it was an architect that was saying very good critique about what's that? It's nothing new, it's not adding nothing in the contemporary art visual thinking, and it's just random, very nice animation, but nothing more. It's not art. That means, for me, it's very important when we are talking about art that we need to be more and more experienced or more, let's say, professional. That not everything is art. Not everything that the people say this is an artist or the market is buying is an art. It's art. That's why at this moment that you are using these tools, because finally artificial intelligence is not a being, it's not someone behind. It's a tool that is run by the who is making the software, who is giving all the data, etc. But the thing is now we need to be more critics about what we allow to say this is a contemporary artist.
Yeah, that's a good point, but also I think you open a bit dangerous door there to kind of who then is the person deciding what is art. Because then somebody just when they see any type of art,
it's not only one person. It's like it's a very expert.
And I think it
has a very well knowledge of what that means contemporary art, what are the different practices and different thinkings behind the form, behind the painting, behind the animation. Everything is let's say because now the problem is we are in a society that is run by media news, by publications in Instagram, and the people don't make a real reflection about what is the meaning of that.
And I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just trying to say that this is, of course, like something that is going to be debated, like, it's just there big paraders in art, like, all these art for and so on. I'm not like trying to say that it's like wrong, and I definitely get that opinion, and that is definitely something that's been discussed in this context as well. Do you want to add, or?
Yes, as you were saying, I don't know, because behind AI, I get it, but there's a team involved that is really good, that's creative, because people are actually working with AI. But when you're creating artwork, like music, drawings, and everything, you're not really working with it. You're using it for your own advantage, even without the others. But it's like you're using it just so you can be better than others in a way that you're not even working on it. You know, and I just don't really agree because AI isn't like when it comes to art, it's not creative, it doesn't have its mind like us people do, you know. In fact, we created AI. So why are we creating something that we use against us as you know?
Yeah.
I think it's because mythology of artificial intelligence. In fact, we are now doing a cooperate with scientists in artificial intelligence, and they say artificial intelligence is not a big thing. It's small algorithms that do specific tasks. They are tools. It's just this. I think first of all, it's not talking about artificial intelligence like a big thing, very powerful thing.
I'm not saying like all of it. It's just when it comes to art, like when it comes to AI, like when we were at the school, it was amazing, what AI can create. But in this case, it's like taking over our hobby, our job, what we want to show to the world, where we want to be possible.
Actually, I was talking with this artist the other week, and he made my comment that I still remember. He said he likes to sometimes play with the AI tools, but then he always is thinking, why are we letting AI do the fun stuff? Like, isn't being created the fun part of being human? And then it used to be so that AI was doing the boring stuff, like the mundane work of like analyzing statistics or like those kind of things that we could not even do with our brains that are little compared to AI's power in that sense. But then suddenly it has shifted to this that now are we using this kind of doing fun things also? Like, what kind of things do we want to keep? Like, do we have to keep them, but also like kind of maybe not at least lose them entirely, maybe share? Sorry, I'm really aware of the time, so we can like, especially like after my presentation, we can continue the discussion. But I want to try to wrap up a bit and also maybe open the floor a bit. Other people also, if you want to like give a comment. So maybe to kind of conclude with something that I think, at least from my perspective as a researcher, of course I'm not an artist and I can't speak for artists, is this concept of co-creativity. So kind of where AI is not replacing, the computer is not replacing whatever you're doing, but maybe it can somehow add something to it or like help or assist you or enhance it in some way. And I think this quote was kind of interesting he's a researcher actually, but he's working in especially in computational creativity, so with artists and like kind of how can artists use computers to create art and so on. And he says that this is the beauty of fundamental research, to see the progress we've made on a hard technical machine, where a problem being unexpectedly channeled to serve such astounding creativity is extremely satisfying. And here he's not saying that the AI is creative, he's saying that the artist is creative, but it's actually the technical tool that is then being used in that creativity. And we are thrilled to witness the deepening interplay between art and AI research, and eagerly looking forward to seeing what we can do together in the future. And yeah, exactly what I said. Maybe the goal should be, at least from my perspective, that nothing is being substituted, nothing is being replaced, but maybe enhancing if it's something that we can do. Of course, there is this question like if we give it a little finger, we'll just take our whole hand. And also, but I think these kind of things have also raised these really good questions that we have been talking throughout the whole talk, like how are we creative as humans? Like, what is our creativity? And if we can take anything from this, like AI art or AI creativity, I think it's good that we have also not only artists, but I think everybody have been like maybe thinking a bit more like what does it actually mean to be human and what does it mean to be creative. And I would like emphasize as a researcher who is studying all these like societal issues, these kind of just, sustainable, and transparent things to AI. So I often encourage it if I have to give like, if I talk with policymakers and so on, because now there seems to be this hard, oh yeah, we can save money with this. So then kind of just to kind of hold back a bit and see, is this thing that we're doing, is it sustainable, is it just for everybody, and is it transparent? Here is just 2 quotes to finish with. This researcher from Aalto University, Christian Kokkelsberger, says that we are now at the juncture where instead of asking can AI be creative, we should be asking what kind of creative AI is best for us. And then another quote from Colton and Wiggins: the artifact resulting from a creative act should be seen as an invitation to engage in dialogue with the artifact and/or the creator, and/or the culture and/or yourself. So kind of when we see this AI art, I think these kind of discussions that we've been today having are extremely valuable, because I think we can learn a lot from, not only from AI, but as humans, from ourselves. And we actually have been discussing the whole time, but this is again I think we are out of time actually with the game. And at least for me, I was told that it's 90 minutes, and now it's been 90 minutes. But we can continue to talk together.
Together.
Yeah, but thank you everybody, and thank you for such a lively discussion.
Thank you.